welcome back to another Swift tutorial. In today's video, we're going to be learning how to upload and download photos to and from Firebase. So here we've got the app that we'll be building. We've already uploaded this photo, so here we just downloaded it as well as show our download URL. Over here we've got Firebase console. We're on the storage tab. And you see we have our images directory and our image we're calling file.png. And just to show you how this works, we can go ahead and hit upload here. And we can pick a different image. And let's go ahead and pick these nice flowers here. Hit this to continue. And it's now uploading behind the scenes. And it has successfully uploaded and changed the image as well as the download URL. And if we close the app and reopen it, it will download the latest upload over here. So this is what we'll be building end to end from scratch. That said, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Helps out tremendously, helps me make more videos for all of you guys. Hit subscribe while you're at it if you're new. Get Xcode ready, get excited, and let's jump right in. Quick pause before we get into the video. If you haven't seen it already, I am hard at work putting together iOSacademy.io, a community where all of us iOS engineers can come together, learn how to build some of the top apps like Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, in addition to interview prep to land some of these iOS roles at top tech companies. So if you're interested in the free and premium content to come, head on over to iOSacademy.io and enter your email address in the waitlist form, and you will be notified as content becomes available. That said, let's get into the video. Let's get started by creating a new project. We'll stick with a single view application, and let's call this Photo Uploader. We're gonna save it on our desktop, and let's jump right in. So of course, to use Firebase Storage, we need to set up Firebase for our project, which entails bringing in the dependencies, as well as setting up the console over here. So get started by heading to firebase.com, signing into a Google account, and then tapping on this button. And we're gonna want to create a new project. And before we do any of that, let's bring in the dependencies over here. We're gonna be using Cocoapods to bring in those dependencies. So open up terminal, and cd into your project, do a pod init. If you don't have Cocoapods installed, you'll get an error here, so you can Google how to install it via Homebrew. After you've initialized Cocoapods, you can open up the pod file, and in here we want to bring in two things. The first thing we want to bring in is the Firebase core aspect of the framework, which lets us just set up the Firebase instances, as well as Firebase Storage, which, as the name implies, allows us to upload and get stuff from the Firebase storage containers in the cloud, which are on Google's cloud platform. So go ahead and lowercase those p's and close text edit and run pod install. And we can actually command W this Xcode window to close the window, since once this is done installing, we're going to open up the XC workspace. And while this gets set up over there, let's set this project up over here. So for this, let's call it Photo Uploader. Let's get started and pretend like we read all this and just hit this to continue. It's basically telling us to select an account for Google Analytics. So there's a default one we'll pick and continue and let this do its thing. And over here, we can see a bunch of dependencies are being installed. We only brought in two, but there are dependencies under the hood that Google brings in. So that should be done soon. So this is creating the project, and then we want to link in our iOS app. So let's hit that. Here's our project dashboard. Now we want to select iOS, and the next thing we want is the bundle ID. So it looks like this is done over here. So now we can say open our project name.xc workspace. Make sure you open the workspace and not the Xcode proj. The workspace includes the Cocoapods, whereas the Xcode proj does not. So now that this is open, let me expand this Xcode window a little bit. Let's copy this bundle ID And what I'm also going to do is go to the application delegate. So in the app delegate, what you want to do is import Firebase. And in this function, application did finish launching, before the return statement, you want to call firebase app.configure. And basically what this does under the hood is it tries to set up the Firebase instance with a Google services file that we're going to bring in. Right now, if you just run your app, it'll crash because it's not able to configure Firebase. So don't run your app just yet. Make sure you've got this bundle ID over here copied, and head back to the console, paste it in right there. We can leave these empty since they're optional. Hit the button to continue. The next thing it's going to do is give us this Google Services file, so go ahead and hit this button to download. Let's put that on our desktop, and we'll bring it into our project as shown here in a moment. Hit next. Just keep hitting the button until you get to the very end. It's just telling us to bring in the dependencies and update the app delegate, which we did already. So now we can drag this guy in. Make sure this top box is checked to copy the file. And now we can run. So go ahead and pick a simulator. I'm going to go with this one, hit the run button, and let that compile and run over here. And basically, Firebase is now waiting for the app to ping the backend console, and we'll see a green check mark here once it's good to go. The compilation takes a few seconds after you've installed Cocoapods, since it's in building all that new source that we brought in for the dependencies. Shouldn't take too long. Like that, just finished. And it's gonna launch our app. Sometimes you have to launch the app and give it a few seconds, or sometimes you have to do it a few times for it to communicate properly to Firebase. I'm gonna expand this console and clear this out with the Command K. We should see our empty app here. It looks like we don't. Actually, we do. So my simulator is in dark mode, so it looks like it's not running, but it is. Let me actually put this in light mode by going to Settings, Developer, and making this light, turning off dark mode. Let's go back to our app. And over here, we're waiting for that check mark. So go ahead and hit Command R again, and give it a few seconds, and there it goes. We've got our check mark here, so we can continue now. So now we want to set up Firebase Storage. So Firebase Storage is pretty simple. It allows you to store things in Firebase on top of Google's cloud platform, and via the Firebase Storage APIs, it lets you upload and download and all that good stuff. So we're going to set it up over here in the console, and then we'll write the code to allow the user to select an image from the photo library, and we'll go ahead and upload it. We'll save the download URL to the device, and every time we open up the app, we'll download and show that image, whatever the latest image is that we've uploaded. So over here, you want to go to Storage under the Develop tab. You'll see a bunch of information about it that we're not going to bother reading. We'll hit this to get started. The first thing it's showing you here is that we are going to get a preset rule language to define how a user can read and write to the storage bucket. It requires authentication by default. You can bring in Firebase Auth optionally. I'm going to get rid of this once we set this up so we don't have to have an authenticated state to write. The next thing it wants is a region for your bucket. This is related to the cloud region on the Google Cloud Platform of where you will be storing your data. Once you set it, you cannot change it, but we're going to leave it as the default. And we'll go ahead and continue. And the only thing we need to do after this is set up is change the rules over here. And once this is done, shouldn't take too long, we can go ahead and change those rules. While it's doing this, let's actually set up our view controller. So we basically want the user to be able to select a photo, and we want to upload it once they've selected it. And then we also want an image view here and maybe a label to show the downloaded photo. So let me actually go to the main.storyboard, and what we're going to do is select this controller, come up to the toolbar and select editor, and we want to go to embed in, and we want navigation controller. This will give us our nav bar up here. And what we want to add to this nav bar is a bar button item. So drag that in to the top right and change it to upload photo. We're going to create an action in the view controller that gets called once we tap that button. So head back to that view controller and create an IB action in here. And we'll call it did tap button. Once the button is tapped, we want to present a photo library picker. And we're going to do that by saying let picker equals UI image picker controller. We're going to say picker dot source type is the photo library. We're going to say picker dot delegate is self. You'll get an error on this line since we haven't conformed yet, so just ignore that for a few seconds. You're going to say picker dot allows editing is true. And then finally, you'll say present picker animated true. The next thing you want to do is conform to the UI image picker delegate, this guy. And then you also want to conform to the UI navigation controller delegate. And if you hit Command B, that error should go away. We want to bring in two functions from the UI image picker controller delegate. So if you click into this, you'll see that there are two functions in here. I'm just going to copy them, come back here and paste them in. And you can actually just go ahead and delete this optional. Let me get rid of my antivirus pop-up. You can also delete this optional and delete this at available. Let's create function bodies for both of these, the curly braces basically. And basically what these two functions do, we'll read them in just a second. The bottom one here is called when the, as the name implies, when the picker is canceled. So all we want to do is call dismiss on the picker to get rid of it with an animation and no completion. And then this one is called when the user finishes picking a photo. So we want to grab the photo from in here. So we're going to say guard let image. And if you look at the parameters, there is an info parameter, which is a dictionary. And the dictionary, I believe, has a key called edited image. And I didn't mention it, but this allows editing, lets the user crop a square image once they've picked it. So we can grab that square image to upload. So we're going to say info, and the key, which I always forget, I believe, is an info key. Whoops, is an info key off of this. And I think it's edited image. Yeah, that's what we want. And we're doing a guard let, so we want to cast it to be a UI image. Otherwise, we can return. After we have selected an image in here, we want to get the bytes for the image, so the data out of it. So we're going to say guard let image data equals image.png data. And that's also optional, which is why we do the guard let. And let's see, before we actually do this, let's dismiss this picker by saying picker, dismiss with an animation, and completion is nil. And basically now we are ready to upload image data. Once it's uploaded, we're going to say get download URL, and then save download URL to user defaults. So let's see, this is a warning because we haven't used this image data yet. The other thing that I'll do really quickly is create two outlets here. First one will be an image view of type UI image view. Second one will be label of type UI label. And basically once we open up the app, it'll download the URL for the last uploaded image that we've saved here, and it'll obviously show that image in the image view, and then we're also going to show the download URL in the label so you guys can see the source that it's being downloaded from. So go to your main.storyboard, And let's bring in an image and a label that we can hook up those outlets to. So there is our image view. Let's connect our image view outlet to the image view. Select it and add some constraints. So we're gonna say 20, 20, 20. Let's give it a height of, let's say 300. That looks good. It's not exactly a square, but we'll have the we'll set it up so the image will actually fit within that container. Now bring in a UI label. And again, let's connect that outlet by right-clicking this and dragging from label to the label, like so. And once again, let's select this and add some constraints. We're gonna say 20, 20, 20, and 20. Should make it the remainder of the screen here. And let's go back to the controller. Whoops, back to the controller. And in Viewdidload, let's just set up some things on the image and label. So we're gonna say label.text alignment is centered. Label.number of lines is 0, which allows it to have n number of lines in line wrap. And for the image view, we're gonna say the content mode is scale aspect fit. So this is our basic setup. If you run the app now, nothing should be crashing. Your image should be empty and your label should just say label, like so. Now let's actually talk about uploading. So over here, that spinner is now gone and we now have our Firebase storage set up. So we want to only configure the rules here. So if you want to go up here in these tabs, you can click on rules. And if you take a look at this default configuration, it's basically saying that allow read and write if the request has authentication. So the request.auth isn't null. Go ahead and delete all this, end that colon, and you can go ahead and hit publish. And now you should be able to read and write data to this storage bucket without an authenticated state. So this is all we need to do here. Now we can actually write the code to upload. So uploading is pretty straightforward, but before actually I do that, one thing I did forget to do, whenever you try to select something from the photo library, you need to ask the user permission for photo library access. So you want to go to your info plist, add a new line, a new entry, and it is privacy-photo library usage description. And you want to, let's see, this one's photo library edition. You want privacy photo library usage description. And the string in here will be what the user is shown in a little modal alert, something along the lines of please allow access to photo library for whatever reason. So we're going to say please allow access to upload photos. Head back to your view controller and let's write that code to upload and then we can wrap it up. So you want to import Firebase Storage and you want to get a reference to the storage instance. So we're going to create a private variable, rather a private constant called storage, and it is storage.storage.reference, I believe. Now off of this instance member, you can call different functions that Firebase provides. So once we have this image data, this is what we want to upload. So something to note is you're not actually uploading the image, you're uploading the bytes for that image, and later we can download those bytes and convert it to our image. So we're going to say off of this storage, we're going to say put data, and there's a few different varieties, and the one we care about is the one with this upload data, metadata, and the completion handler. So I believe it's this one. So the data we want to put is image data. The metadata, as it implies, can be just metadata about the thing you're uploading. We're going to say nil. And the completion has two things that comes in, metadata optional and error optional. So we're going to say metadata, rather we're going to say underscore because we don't care about the metadata, comma error in. Then we're going to validate that an error did not occur. So we're going to say guard error equals nil, else we're going to print out failed to upload, and we're going to return. If it did successfully upload, what we want to do is essentially grab basically the data from, grab the download URL rather, from what we have uploaded. So we're putting data into here. The other thing that I'll mention is everything in Firebase Storage as well as the Firebase database is related to references. And I actually didn't do it here, but maybe we should. So a reference on a file system of where something resides looks something along the lines of the following. A file on your desktop is at desktop and then file.extension. So Firebase is no different. So to create a reference, what you want to do is say ref is our storage variable, which is lowercase, dot child, and let's say this will be images, let's do slash file dot png. And the reason we know it's PNG is because we're getting PNG data out of it. And then I believe you can say put data on this. So instead of putting data directly in storage, which will put the data at the root of your storage bucket, you can copy this whole thing and paste it there. And now, whenever you want to get the download URL for the data, you can pass in this path to get it. So once we have successfully uploaded, and let me put these on new lines so you guys can see all of it on the screen. And let's fix the indentation with a Control-I. Once you have uploaded the data, we can now get a download URL. And we can do that by grabbing the reference to that item. But since we're in a closure, we want to say self dot, and it is download URL. And this will return in the closure a URL optional and an error optional. So we're going to say URL, comma, error in. And now in here, we want to unwrap the URL and make sure an error didn't occur. So we're going to say guard, let URL equals URL, error equals nil, else return. We're going to get the URL string by saying URL.absolute string. We're going to print this download URL like so, URL string. And we also want to save this URL, the download URL, to our user default so we can later use it to download the latest image. So user defaults dot standard dot set, and we want to set this URL string for a key, and we'll just call it URL. So that's basically it in terms of uploading. So let's go and upload something. Hit Command B. We're going to open up this and hit Command R. Once something's uploaded, we should see the download URL here. So I'm going to hit Command K to clear it. Hit the simulator again. Hit this upload button, and we should get our photo library picker. Let's try that one more time. Actually, I think I forgot to connect that action. So go back to the storyboard. And let's make sure that action is connected. So let's right click this, drag from the IB action to this guy. And let's try that one more time. Hit Command R. Give it a few seconds. And let's hit this button. And we should get our photo library picker. There it goes. Sometimes the simulator is just a little slow. Let me clear out the console with the Command K. And let's pick an image. So if you pick a larger image, you see that allows editing gives you the square kind of crop area, forcing the user to pick a square. So go ahead and select the image. And once we have selected it, you can see that the upload occurred. And here's the download URL it has uploaded our asset to. So before we go to this URL in our Firebase console, if we hit Command R to refresh, we should have a folder here now, which is our images. And in here, we should have file.png. So let's go to this URL in the browser. I'm going to copy this whole thing, and this should basically prompt the download of that file we uploaded, which is a photo. So paste that in. Downloads a file here. If we open it, it is indeed our picture. So how do we actually get this in our app to show it to the user again? So let's look at that. Now in Viewdidload, what we're going to do is we're going to check if there is a URL or if there is a value set for this key in user defaults. And if there is, we're going to try to download the image. So in Viewdidload, we are going to say guard lets URL string is URL, rather user default standard, and we want a value for key URL as a string. Otherwise, we want to return. Now that we have a URL, we want to convert it to a URL object. So we're going to do that in the same guard statement. We'll say let URL equals URL with a string and pass in that string. Do a control I after highlighting to fix indentation. And now we can actually download that data from the URL. And to do that, we are going to say user session, rather URL session, and we want .shared data task, and you want data task with URL and completion handler. Pass in that URL. The completion handler takes 3 parameters and returns a void. So those are, as you can see here, data optional, URL response, and an error. So we care about the data. Let's ignore that URL response, and we care about the error. And it's all going to be in this closure. We're going to guard let the data to make sure it's not nil, make sure the error is nil. In other words, an error did not occur. Once we're down here, we now know that we have this image data downloaded, and we can convert it to an image by saying let image equals UI image, and we can create that image with data, with image data as follows here, pass in that data, and now we can say self.imageview.image equals this image. So let's see, if we hit Command B, should be compiling now, but looks like we have an error because I typed something wrong over here. Imageview.image, because I spelled image wrong up here. So everything should highlight now. The other thing I'll mention is because the response of this is on a background thread, we want to put it on the main thread to update the user interface. I'm not going to go too much into the weeds of threading in this video. It's a bit out of scope, but go ahead and write the following code for dispatch queue.main async and throw that code that we wrote into this block. This will make sure that the UI is updated as soon as we get the response. And finally, we had defined this whole thing here, and this actually returns a download task, so you can assign it to task, and you can say task.resume. So the resume name is slightly confusing because it actually implies that it's continuing it, but this is how you kick off the request to get started. And this should be sufficient. And we also have that label, so we want to go ahead and we want resume, not response. That's why it's complaining. We want to also update our label with the URL string. So we're going to say label.text is that URL string. So now if we hit Command R to build and run, we should see that image being downloaded, and it shows up right here. And it actually also shows our URL that we fetched it from here. So if we go ahead and select a different image, let's pick those flowers that we see down here and hit this. It will upload and it'll show a URL here once it's done, like so. Now our code doesn't actually update it here. I guess we could, but the thing I want to show you is over here, if you refresh, we still only have file.png. So you might have been thinking we might have a second file here, and the reason we don't is because when we upload, we're getting an explicit reference to images/file.png. And when you tell Firebase to do this, it basically overwrites anything that's at this path. So the key takeaway is things need to be uniquely named. But if we hit Command R to build and run again, you'll see that the new image that it downloads should be our flowers that we have uploaded here. And here is the new URL for it. So the last thing I'll do before closing up the video is once we have uploaded our image and we get the URL for it, Instead of waiting to download the next time the app launches, we can just do it in here explicitly. And we already have the URL string here, so we can simply say self.label.text is this URL string. And we also have the image up here that we are uploading in this image variable, so we can also say self.imageview.image equals image. And finally, once again, let's wrap this to be run on the main queue, which is the main thread. So dispatch queue, main, async, and put those in there. Hit Command R one last time. And now you'll see as soon as our asset is uploaded, the image and the label will change right away. And it'll also work once we reopen the app. So let's pick this one. Hit this, and you'll see it's uploading, and it has finally uploaded. So it has updated this, and it has changed our image. Let's go ahead and close the app in the simulator, reopen, and it fetches the image again. So that is how you can upload an image to Firebase as well as download it. So that said, if you haven't hit that like button already, please make sure you do so for the YouTube algorithm. Helps out tremendously, helps me make more videos for all of you. If you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed, hit subscribe while you're at it. If you have any questions, errors, comments, I just want to say hi, throw it down below in the comments. I reply to every single comment within a few days. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.